This is an update about a new sculpture that I just started. It's based off of this illustration from the Voynich manuscript. And when I last sculpted figures out of porcelain, I came up with a process that worked really well, and I am sort of adapting this with the same process, but a little bit differently because this figure has this large blue headdress that makes it so the shape is a little different. What I did to start was to make each half of the body separately. So these were both hand sculpted, the upper half of the legs and the upper half of the body, and then it was hollowed out on the inside. So the next step is going to be to make the face, add that here, and then to connect at the waist. I'm going to use one of the face molds that I made, where I press clay into this mold and I get an already sculpted little face. To connect the two parts, I am scratching into the clay and going to use a mixture of clay and water. It's kind of like a glue that sticks the two parts together, and then they have to be blended, smoothed together with the sculpting stick. Now, this is going to actually look really misshapen at first, but the main thing right now is just to get this connected, and then I can shift the rest of this clay around so that it's more coming forward rather than all the way back here. Right now it just looks like she has a giant head and a tiny little face. So I've never made a shape like this before. I've never made a figure with a big headdress like this, and I'm gonna try something a bit experimental here, but I think I am going to temporarily add a little disc of clay that closes up this part, even though I want that to be open later. But what I talked about with shifting the clay around, it can sometimes be easier if everything is closed up so that the air can't escape, and that way you can kind of press on the clay without everything collapsing. So it's going to be easier to do that, I think, if I can add a little temporary cover on this part. So now you see I can actually do this without the clay collapsing, and I'm shifting all of this clay forward. And her head is still way too forward, so I want to sort of indent this area and push her head back sort of inside this, what will be this headdress. and adding a little bit of clay back to her neck, because these nymphs in the Voynich illustrations do not really have a defined neck at all. It just merges straight from their head into their shoulder. One of the many distinctive features about them. And it's those distinctive features that I really am trying to capture here. I think I'm also going to have to remove just some of this extra space here. So I'm actually going to cut into the side and take away some of that clay. Kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but I'm just thinning out the clay and removing actually quite a lot of the volume that was back here, so that the whole headdress kind of slopes forward. Because if I want this to kind of look like fabric, I want it to kind of have more weight at the bottom and less at the top. So that looks a lot better from the side, now that it doesn't have so much extra headdress back there. So I only closed up this part as a temporary thing, so I'm now going to remove that circle of clay so that I can attach the upper legs there.